I just wanted to say thank you so much for choosing Bread for Words as a silver medal recipient for the Irma Black Award for Excellence in Children's Literature. It is a very special honor. I know that this award is voted on by the children, so thank you so much. You all are the reason, the absolute reason why I'm writing these stories and sharing this information, sharing this history with you, because I think it is so important and it is so endearing to see it being received in this way. Several years ago, pretty recently, I decided to reread one of his autobiographies, and it jumped out at me that the way he learned to read and write was from the help of his friends. It occurred to me that this is, you know, given the rate of literacy, given the struggle like that some of us had or are experiencing learning to read and write, I thought it would be such a cool way to share not only our nation's history, but also how one of the most prominent orators in our nation's history learned to read and write and his path towards literacy. So this story is basically how he taught himself, with the help of his friends, how to read and write. And it's a process that took him years. You know, the dedication that he had is important, and I hope that that conveys, because I know there's a lot of us that have struggled learning how to read and write in the past, but don't give up. We have so many ways of learning these days, more than even Frederick Douglass did. So it's pretty incredible that this person who went on this long journey from being enslaved, who wrote 3 autobiographies, gave tons and tons of speeches, was an activist, human rights activist, civil rights activist, and it all started with his path to literacy. Once he learned how to read and write, that freed him from the bonds of slavery. And what's so neat about this story is that he learned from other students. So my research process for this story was, I read Frederick Douglass's autobiography. I read a bunch of his speeches that had been recorded or transcribed, I should say. And then I read biographies that people today, you know, in our lifetime had written about him. Once I finished my research, I took a trip up to Baltimore. I met a man named Bradley Alston, who was an urban ranger with the Baltimore National Heritage Area. And he was so invaluable with his information and insight. And I'm so grateful that he was willing to share a lot of that information with me, because it just helped add to the texture and the richness, I think, of the story. And he actually took me on a tour outside of the museum itself, which is the Frederick Douglass Isaac Myers Maritime Park and Museum. And I know that there's like a living classrooms associated there with. So if you live in the Baltimore area, I definitely recommend you go and check it out, because it spans Frederick's life from when he was a child to arriving on the sloop, seeing Baltimore Harbor for the first time, as an adult, you know, where he was working in the shipyards. There's actually rope that they would dip in tar, and they had these specific tools that they would use to hammer between the planks of ships to kind of waterproof the ships. So I was able to mimic doing something like that. It was very cool. They have that, I believe they still have that at the museum. And then seeing the shipyard itself, or where the shipyard would have been, seeing the docks and the harbor. We also walked down some of the same streets that Frederick himself would have walked down. They have a lot of very cool information, stuff that's not in the book, and it gives you a wonderful perspective on that time period that Frederick Douglass lived in. When I was writing this book, I saw it as an opportunity that when we help each other, you know, that the way we all get ahead is when we help each other. And one of the students in a 4th grade class here in North Carolina pointed out to me that it's important when somebody asks for help that we give it. That student was absolutely right. When somebody is willing to help you, it can make all the difference in the world. It did for Frederick Douglass. It did for me. I want to thank everyone that helped me bring this book to life. And also a huge thank you to my editor, Barb McNally at Sleeping Bear Press. She has believed in me from day one. I am forever grateful to her for that. I am so grateful to Kayla for taking the time and having as much heart and passion about this story as I did. I'm so grateful to Barb for helping me get it to where it needs to be. I'm so grateful to Bradley for all of his additional insight into the history and life and times and location of Frederick Douglass. And finally, one more time, I just want to say thank you, readers. You are the reason why I write, and I am so appreciative to get these stories into your hands, especially if you don't have to wait until college to learn about the things that I did. So, thank you so much.